and welcome to a special edition of Cricket Predictor. We're coming to you live from Sharjah. It's the Cornish area, you get the skyline, but more importantly, you get an inside view of what's expected next in the second test match. Well, we've got a very dominant voice from Paul Tinnett. Welcome, Paul, to the show. I'm going to start my show by asking you, how did India plan the assassination of Australian team in the first test? Mind you, these are strong words, but the collapse was completely formidable when India was concerned.
Hey, Sunil, look, mate, I'm in Sydney. We're a bit shell-shocked. We're a bit stunned here. I'm outside. Can you hear the sound? It's cicadas. That's like the world's loudest insect. Every November and December, outside you get this roaring sound in the background, and it's a sound I associate with Australia winning at cricket. It's weird, but that we've had such a massive loss in the first test match. Now, I think India were just magnificent. And, if you're going to say, what did they do to, out-strategize Australia? If I'm going to be cheeky, they got themselves bowled out on day one. I can see, and I'm probably clutching at straws here, but I can see, a sliding doors moment where if India had not got bowled out till the end of day one and Australia had got to bat them with our top order on day two and it was flat, a Labuschagne century, an easy Australian win, and everything would be very difficult. Very, very different, I should say. As it was, Australia having to bat at the second half of that first day, exposed them to Bumrah, who he may well be the greatest bowler of all time. I've been telling everyone who will listen how exciting it is that he's now got a test bowling average of 20.06. Of all bowlers with 150 wickets or more, only SF Barnes, who played at the very start of the 20th century, has a better average. It goes Bumrah at 2, Alan Davidson, then there's Marshall Garner and Ambrose. Those are the best bowlers that I can ever recall. Bumrah is right at the top. To face him under those conditions on a difficult day one pitch, it was too good. It was too much to ask for the Aussies. And people have been talking about it as one of the great spells by an overseas bowler in Australia. So I think that from a tactical point of view, I think what India did do well, they were very, very accurate with their bowling. Sometimes overseas sides don't do that so well in Perth. It's kind of a cliche that you see the extra bounce and you want to bowl bouncer after bouncer after bouncer, and overseas sides get that wrong. The only one bowling bouncer after bouncer in Perth was poor old Marnus Labuschagne, and didn't the Indian batters love that? The other thing I think was, I really was impressed with the batting of Nitish Kumar Reddy and the freedom with which he played. Contrast that to Labuschagne and Smith and some of the Aussies who were really, really tight and tense and not willing to play a single aggressive shot. Kumar Reddy came out, smashed the ball everywhere, really got India's momentum going in both innings. And, of course, Kohli, fantastic as well. So India, just what could have gone, it couldn't have gone any better for them in that first test. Kohli, century, tick. Jaiswal, will he be able to handle Australian bowlers in Australian conditions? Well, 160 tick calls to mind the Tendulkar innings from way back in the early in 1991-92 when he got 100 at Perth. So I think India will play very smart. They did get the better of conditions, but that's no excuse. India were vastly better than Australia in this first test.
Paul, thank you for the detailed answer on that particular question. But I move on to my second question, which is a little philosophical in nature. When India was coming here, they were called as the underdogs. And suddenly, they emerged as the Lion Kings. Do you think India did merit that tag of underdogs while they were coming in for the series?
It's funny, India, they always seem to get underestimated when they come to Australia. Like the last two times that they've been here before the series, they were the underdogs. They were the underdogs this time round. And I think we're all probably guilty of reading too much into the thrashing by New Zealand. It was very, very different conditions that they were faced in India compared to what they're going to face here. And I think we probably also, just had some doubts that India answered very, very well. Was Kohli in the form that he's always been in the past? Yes. The big thing that a lot of Australian commentators got wrong was this feeling that, Bumrah's a champion, but after that, their fast bowling really drops away alarmingly, especially given that Shami's not going to be here. Well, as it was, I thought Harshit Rana and Mohammad Siraj bowled really nicely. The fact that they've got Akash Deep and Krishna on the bench shows the strength of their lineup as well. And hey, look, like speaking of the bench, Rohit Sharma, Shubman Gill not playing in the first test. Obviously, one with the birth of his second son, one with an injury. Jadeja and Ashwin left out, and then Sarfraz Khan. I mean, they didn't even think about playing Sarfraz Khan in the first test. Yet he has a first class average of 65. Tell you who'd be playing is Sarfraz Khan. If he was an Australian, he might be the first batter picked for our side right now. Yet he couldn't get into the Indian side despite the fact that two of their top batters were missing. So I think ultimately the Indian side is a lot better than a lot of people thought.
Well, Australia seemed to have missed out on the jigsaw puzzle, the very important cog in the wheel. What do you think it was and how they would make up going into the second test?
I think that the really two concerning things for me in that first test were, one, the bowling of Pat Cummins. Now, there's been a lot of talk about his preparation. He went quite light on his preparation going into the series. And there's a lot of criticism that he should have played some more cricket to get himself ready for that first test. And he is countering that by saying, in the past, we have started well because we've had extra preparation and we've really started to struggle towards the end. And they talked about that last time India were here, that the Australian bowlers got jaded towards the end and they don't want that to happen again, to which people have said, that's fine if you're going to be bowling well and finishing strong at Sydney. But if the series is already lost by then, what's the point? So I thought Cummins was quite disappointing with the ball in that first test. He's never bad. He's a fantastic bowler. And it got me to look at the last couple of years or so of his overall career. His average is now, in those last couple of years, it's around about the 28. And that's very good, but it's not at the 22 where he was kind of, earlier on in his career, I was saying he may well be, along with Glenn McGrath, the best Australian fast bowler since Dennis Lilly. The way that he's performed in the last couple of years, I'm starting to waver on that. So massive question mark over him coming into this second test. If he comes back to his best, then maybe Australia's going to look good once more. The other thing that was concerning was the fact that Smith and Labuschagne especially, and I think to an extent, I know Khawaja got out playing an aggressive shot in the second innings, but I think Khawaja and McSweeney as well, the four of them are kind of had that attitude of let's just bat time. And I think, and Ricky Ponting said it really well, on a difficult pitch, you actually have to take more risks, because if you just bat time, there's going to be one with your name on it and out you'll go. And I think the second innings of Smith was very interesting. I thought he batted really well, but eventually he only got, 17 or 19 or whatever he made, didn't really do any damage on the scoreboard. At the other end, Travis Head, had a bit of luck, a couple of inside edges, whatever else, but got away and ended up making a really good contribution. I think that's where Australia went strategically incorrectly. And obviously Labuschagne getting 2 off 50 or something, they have to be more aggressive in Adelaide, take a few risks, and that's the only way that you're going to play. Ultimately, the only three Australians who looked half decent with the bat in the first test were Carey, Head and Marsh in the second innings, and they all played with some aggression. Australia need to do that more so in the second test.
Well, it seems to be a roller coaster ride for the Indian team. Just imagine walking in with the underdogs tag and suddenly going on from the day one and to emerging as victorious in day 4. What do you think the mental aptitude and the mental approach of Indian team would be going in for the second test match today?
Ravi Shastri made a really interesting point on the Foxtel coverage, and he basically said, the Indian side right now would be saying to themselves, we're better than the Australians. That we are actually, pound for pound, a better side, even in Australian conditions. And I don't want to say this, but I grudgingly think he's probably right. So if I was the Indian side going into the second test, I would say, look, we're better than them. We're not miles better than them. If they have the better of conditions, if we drop a couple of catches, or they have someone who just happens to have a wonderful test match, they could beat us. But over the course of a 5-test series, really, that's enough of a length of time that our inherent superiority should show. So I'd be saying, look, if we go out and win the Adelaide Test, happy days, we're all good. But if we go out and get beaten in the Adelaide Test, it's going to be because of one of those things I said above. That's fine. There will be a huge change in the reaction. And I've seen it so many times in test series where when one side wins, they're talked about as unbeatable. Then the next test, the other side wins, and now it's the first side that's in chaos and crisis and everything's gone wrong. They've got to say, look, if we do lose this second test, well, that's fine. These things happen. Australia have an excellent record in pink ball test matches. We've got 3 more shots at them. We only need to win, 2 of these total 4 tests to guarantee a series victory. We'll do that. So I think that's what they need to do from a mental point of view going into Adelaide. Be very calm that Australia might hit back, but I think deep down they think they're better.
Whenever India loses or wins or tours Australia, Australian media has an important thing or two to say to the Indian contingent. What do you think is the major mental outfit and the mental makeup of the Australian media is today?
Well, it's just been, it's been amazing. We lost the one-day series against Pakistan and no one knew that it had happened, mainly because it wasn't on free-to-air television. It didn't get pumped up. No slight against Pakistan. And I was critical of the fact that we hadn't promoted the summer enough and saying, I can't wait till the test series starts because that is on free television. That's going to get people talking. Well, be careful what you wish for. There has been just an avalanche of media commentary and people on social media and pubs and friends and everywhere around the country. There's a real feeling of anger, as though the team has let us down. This is not meant to happen. We are meant to win at home. It's like they've forgotten that we lost the last 2 series at home to India, and it's just like a birthright that we win. But on one hand, I'm pleased because it shows that, cricket is still a massive game in this country, and I don't think there'd be many sports that we could get this level of hostility that's come out from the Australian public as a result of that first test loss. Part of it's a little bit over the top as well. And the one thing that really irks me is I like the fact that this side play with some grace. And, younger viewers might not realise that probably until throughout the whole history of cricket until maybe the 1970s, the Aussies were always known for their sportsmanship and their good grace. And they were really nice people, but played very, very hard on the field. That sort of changed with the whole sledging and aggression that took place. And I think, A, it doesn't work, and B, it just makes us look boorish and unpleasant. And I always sort of look, Roger Federer, he didn't need to sledge, he just played beautiful tennis. That ultimately, cricket's a game about hitting the top of off stump and seeing the ball early and hitting it well. If you start sort of engaging and sort of sledging, it doesn't work and you just look stupid. Yet there are plenty of Aussies who are like, we've got to go back to the days of the tough guys, Warney and Ricky Ponting and Steve Waugh and these guys. They were, tough men. They wouldn't smile at the opposition. There's a lot of criticism of their body language. There's even been people angry that Pat Cummins has made the occasional very gentle remark on social issues, like, these guys, bring back the tough, hard drinking blokes of yesteryear and let's really get into them. And I just think that is so misguided. If the Australians come out in the second test and start sledging the Indians, it would just look stupid, and it's not going to make us play any better. And I don't think that they're going to do that. But I have criticism of some of Pat Cummins' on-field tactical decisions, but I think that I really do like the fact that the Australian side play with a lot of grace. And I think that what the Australian media reaction and public reaction has missed is that, as I said at the start, pound for pound, it may just be that India is a slightly better cricket side than Australia. And I hate to say that, but I think it's true.
Well, media seems to have taken an important stance when it comes to the Indian contingent, whether it's Indian media, Indian people, fans, or the Indian cricketers. Now, what do you think is the current stance of the host broadcaster in the entire series?
That's a very interesting question. I've been really interested in seeing a lot of the Indian reaction to the Fox coverage, because you guys are getting the Foxtel commentary team and all the production values. And a lot of Indians have been saying how good it is. And I think that maybe that's Australian cricket has prided itself on the high quality of its broadcast ever since Kerry Packer took over in the late 70s, because prior to that, it was on the ABC, the national broadcaster. They only had the camera at one end. They didn't have many cameras. And he was like, let's bring it into the 20th century. And he really went berserk and improved the quality of the coverage of cricket. And ever since then, Australian fans have kind of demanded that. So I think that what you're seeing is the result of that. And the fact that Foxtel are in a war with Channel 7, the free-to-air broadcaster. So the strange thing is, around the world, you're all getting the Foxtel coverage. And we do get that in Australia, but probably 80% of people in Australia are actually watching it on the free-to-air broadcaster Channel 7. And the one thing that I kind of don't like is the fact that that has diluted everything. That there are some fantastic commentators on 7 and there are some fantastic commentators on Fox. There are some, not so good ones as well. David Warner has really polarized opinion on, I don't think he's quite as bad as a lot of people make out, but is he good enough to be on Fox's coverage? He does bring some interesting insights of a recently retired test player. But I prefer broadcasters who maybe are a little bit more eloquent than he is. But that's my disappointment that on Channel 7, we have some excellent ones, Ricky Ponting, Tim Lane, Alison Mitchell. Those last two are probably not names that are all, well, certainly Tim Lane is a name that's not familiar to probably many Indians, but he's a fantastic broadcaster. And I wish that they could all condense it and have just that sort of combined effort. Sonny Gavaskar as well. He's out here causing all sorts of ruckus. He's making some wild claims around the fact that Josh Hazlewood's been omitted because the team are angry at him, which I think is completely not true. But it's box office. It's good for entertainment, and I think it'd be good if if he and Ravi Shastri were in the same box. It's a pity that one's on 7 and one's on Foxtel and one's on 7. So. Yeah, it's a very, it does make me yearn for the Channel 9 days when it was all, magnificent from Tony Gregg, Bill Laurie and Richie Benno and Ian Chappell, and it was like everyone was watching the same coverage. But still, I think both sides do a pretty decent job.
Well, these were hard facts coming to you straight from Sydney and from our guest who were looking into stats and analysis exclusively for Border Gavaskar Trophy. Keep watching NewsX. We'll be back after a short commercial break. Don't go anywhere else.